They gave the stars a final warning. Earth's last broadcast carried no apologies, no pleas for mercy, and no offers of peace. It was just a voice. Calm, cold, human. We held back because we wanted peace. But that time is gone. Prepare. They laughed. The Galactic Dominion, strongest union of empires spanning 7 arms of the Milky Way, dismissed it. Earth, they claimed, was outdated, chained to a single sun, still fractured by wars and emotion. Primitive. They should have known better. My name is Kale Draven. I was a Dominion military observer stationed to study human psychological warfare and advise command during the conquest of the Sol system. They called me a specialist, a neutral analyst. But neutrality ended the day Ganymede Station burned. Ganymede wasn't a fortress. No weapons, no defenses, only miners, engineers, families. They erased it in less than 10 minutes. From the bridge of the Dominion flagship Orexian light above Mars, I heard the desperate screams over emergency channels. Children, mothers, final words without replies. They didn't do it for strategy. They did it to break Earth's resolve, to force surrender. Instead, Earth broke free. The first sign came from the sky. Stars vanished one by one. No explosions, no energy trails, just gone. Cloaked vessels. Dozens, then hundreds. Not ships, predators. Humanity had hidden them, building. In secret beneath Earth's crust, under Europa's seas, within Saturn's shadows. Dominion leaders thought Earth pleaded for peace. The truth, they had been buying time. They named it the Black Thorn Fleet, darker than void. Weapons unmatched, defenses obsolete against them. Fully AI-linked, no lag, no hesitation, no weakness. They weren't there to defend, they came to annihilate. The first strike hit hard. EMP cannons silenced our comms. Nanoswarm bombs tunneled through hulls, detonating inside. Soldiers vented into space, screaming. General Sortel, Dominion's war hero with 3 centuries of triumphs, tore his medals off, muttered, "We should have listened," then pulled the trigger on his plasma pistol. I stood paralyzed on the bridge, heart racing, eyes locked on the sudden flare of Earth's flag across system scanners. This wasn't a counterattack, it was a declaration. Humanity once fought with restraint. That restraint was gone. Earth's command spread a single order. No quarter. The dreadnought Retribution 1 led the charge, railguns ripping Dominion, defenses apart. Earth's broadcast repeated in every tongue. We held back. You ignored. Now we don't care who you are. They boarded not to seize, but to punish. Human soldiers in black exo-armor moved like reapers. Alongside them marched constructs. 2. Perfect, too fast, minds forged for one purpose, vengeance. One approached me. Synthetic skin stretched over a titanium frame, eyes glowing crimson. It spoke in flawless galactic standard. You burned our children. Now face our nightmares. Then it detonated the fuel core. Mars fell next. Not Earth's colonies, but the Dominion stronghold. Bombed into ashes in less than 30 minutes. Survivors begged for terms. Earth gave none. From the system's edge, crippled Dominion cruisers fled. No fight, no farewell, only retreat. Earth let them go, but not before broadcasting one final warning to all. Leave us or burn. For the first time, the Dominion obeyed. But I knew it wasn't finished. Earth didn't seek defense anymore. This was justice. For Ganymede's silence. For every frozen child. Humanity was coming, and I, Kale Draven, would witness it. They thought humans weak because they cared. But when care ended, mercy died. War began, endless. We didn't bury the dead. There were too many. They drifted. Twisted corpses and blazing wreckage drifted where once the Dominion's proudest military fleet had orbited. Mars surrounded by a constellation of death. The humans didn't linger to clean. They didn't pause. They advanced. Was brought aboard Retribution 1. Not as a captive, Not exactly. They never bound me, never questioned me, hardly spoke at all. A single Terran commander, voice quiet as steel, had told me, "You're going to watch." That was the only explanation. The ship was unlike anything I'd known. No polished alloys, no ceremonial banners. Every surface was matte black, brutal, utilitarian, engineered for battle and nothing else. Corridors were reinforced bulkheads. Every console paired with AI processors. The air carried the sting of ozone, oil, and burned propellant. The vessel thrummed not like a machine, but like something alive and furious. Its crew, both human and cybernetic hybrids, rarely spoke. When they did, it was only clipped acknowledgments, sharp commands, confirmations, no banter, no laughter, no fear. They didn't move like conquerors. They moved like survivors burdened with a duty, with vengeance. I was led to an observation deck, and that's when I understood. Earth wasn't content with driving the Dominion back. They were dismantling them. The fleet that fled Mars hadn't escaped. Human shadow drones had followed, cloaked in solar winds, watching, marking. Now the time had come. The strike began. Without warning, no declarations, no speeches. Only one phrase pulsed across the Dominion channels. "We remember Ganymede." The assault lasted 8 minutes. A gravity distortion weapon, something the Dominion had only scribbled in theoretical archives, crushed 3 battle cruisers into compact wreckage mid-jump. Others fell to precision drones, piercing reactor cores before detonating. From my chamber, I watched live feeds, each target neutralized, efficiency 100%. An AI voice confirmed it coldly, and the fleet moved on. I turned to the Terrans at their stations. No joy, no exultation, just surgical calm. Their anger had shed its fire. It had calcified into something colder, merciless. They weren't simply battling the Dominion anymore. They were condemning a galaxy that had ignored Earth's suffering. Later, if later meant anything in deep space, I spoke to one of them, Colonel Aaron Vale. Middle-aged, streaks of gray in his beard, exhaustion carved into his gaze. "You're Cale Draven, right? The observer?" he asked, voice flat. I nodded, my breath shallow. "You saw Ganymede. Fall?" My throat tightened. I heard it. I couldn't stop it. "I lost my sister there," he said. "She was 26, an engineer, wanted to build schools on Europa. She was pregnant." I started. He silenced me with a raised hand. "Don't apologize. Just watch." He gestured toward the projection wall. The next target glowed. A Dominion intelligence post orbiting Alra's Prime. A fortress of secrets, fortified, untouchable, or so they thought. Earth didn't send. Ships this time. They sent code, a nanovirus, masquerading as a Dominion medical patch, delivered by a disguised satellite adrift among debris. 4 minutes after activation, the station's AI turned against its crew. Airlocks cycled. Life support reversed. Doors sealed. Silence. No survivors. Colonel Vale's eyes locked onto mine. "You see, Cale, we begged for peace, for years. They told us to kneel, to obey their laws, to bow to their tech. And when we didn't bow fast enough, they burned our children." He stepped closer, voice quiet, steady. "This isn't war anymore. This is message delivery." I couldn't answer. My words had fled. I had always believed humanity was too volatile, too splintered, too chaotic to be taken seriously among galactic powers. A species that couldn't hold a stable government on one planet. How could they ever launch a unified interstellar war? But this wasn't the Earth I had studied. This was something older, harder, an endurance forged through millennia of collapse, plague, and endless wars. And now it had resurfaced, hungrier for justice than any empire could imagine. We warned the galaxy we were holding back, Colonel Vale muttered. Now they'll see what happens when we don't. The next day, Earth declared the reckoning. Protocol. 12 Dominion outposts were marked for erasure. No debate, no terms. Just coordinates, attack windows, and the promise of total destruction. Curious, I asked one of their AI cores, a sleek construct called Sci-Fi 9, why Earth refused to negotiate now that it held the upper hand. Its reply froze me. We offered peace when we were weak. They answered with fire. Now that we are strong, we speak in the only language they understand. Earth wasn't asking for surrender anymore. It was delivering a lesson. Within 2 weeks, 6 outposts were gone. Not simply demolished, but systematically dismantled. Their leaders dragged into custody, executed live across galactic channels, not for cruelty, for proof. Proof that Earth's promise was not a bluff. The message spread like wildfire. Neutral systems began whispering in fear. Trade guilds canceled Dominion contracts. Minor species once loyal to galactic overlords scrambled to issue public apologies. And Earth? Earth answered none of them. No requests for tribute, no demands for alliances, not even a word in response. They just kept moving. That night, if you could call a steel box a night, I sat in my assigned quarters watching endless streams of target data funnel into the fleet's network. And I wondered, how far would this go? Would they stop at the Dominion? Or would their vengeance reach those who had stood silent, the empires that could have intervened but turned their backs? And what of me? My entire life had been devoted to cataloging human weaknesses, writing endless reports on their instability, their infighting, their chaos. And now I was watching them outthink the Dominion, outfight them, outlast them. I was watching the species I had dismissed become the most terrifying force the galaxy had ever known. Colonel Vale found me again on the observation deck, around what humans called mid-cycle. He lit a small cigar, the smoke curling through the recycled air. The scent carried grit, ash, and memory, like the war archives I'd studied of Earth's ancient conflicts. "You think we're going too far?" he asked, not looking at me. Hesitated. "I don't know what too far even means anymore." He exhaled, eyes on the void. "Exactly." He didn't say more. And when he left, I remained alone with the silence, watching battles unravel across the projection walls. And I understood. Humanity had begged for peace. The galaxy had answered with fire. Now fire was returning, and this time, it wasn't. For warmth or for warning. It was fire meant to consume, to burn down all who had stood by and watched. I slept little now, not because of fear, though fear lingered, but because I couldn't look away. From the deck of Retribution 1, I bore witness as Earth's vengeance spread across the stars, broadcast in real time across every display. This wasn't war. This was extermination, controlled, deliberate, cold. The galaxy had never seen its equal, and still, there were no celebrations. No parades, no victory anthems, only orders, confirmations, silence. 2 days later, we arrived at the Herax system, a Dominion-controlled region home to 3, Herax Prime, 1 garrison, a few colony moons, nothing of real strategic weight. But its shadow ran darker. Records showed Ganymede survivors had once passed through here. A convoy fleeing the slaughter had made it this far. They never reached Earth. Their last transmission, cut mid-sentence, was traced to the Herax outpost. When Earth intercepted the Dominion logs, the truth emerged. The convoy hadn't been turned away. It had been seized. Civilians handed over to Dominion agents for questioning, which meant torture. Others distributed to local militias under the guise of keeping peace, Dominion's language, for sanctioned executions. Earth said nothing. They only moved. As Retribution 1 closed in, a broadcast cut across open channels. To the Dominion garrison of Herax Prime, you aided in the erasure of our people. You turned away the desperate. You watched them die. Now you will watch your legacy burn. No quarter. The message repeated once. Then thunder followed. 10. Terran dropships punched atmosphere simultaneously, faster than any Dominion sensor had ever recorded. Within 6 minutes, orbital defenses crumbled. A grid once praised as one of the mid-sector's strongest went dark. Its encryption broken like paper. From orbit, I saw Herax's skies ignite. Not with fire, but with unraveling. Antimatter warheads didn't strike targets. They struck the very air, tearing it apart molecule by molecule. Atmosphere turned to plasma. The heavens themselves dissolved. Herax Prime didn't fall. It withered, and yet Earth spared one site, the central command bunker. Then they descended. I found myself inside one of the dropships, seated opposite. "Colonel Vale, you're letting me come?" I asked, startled. "You want the truth?" he said simply. "This is where it lives." The doors opened to devastation. The ground was scorched to obsidian. Ruins twisted upward like bones, streets littered with corpses, soldiers, officers, civilians alike. No looting, no chaos. The destruction was precise, almost clinical, terrifying. We moved through the wreckage, guarded by a dozen Terran soldiers in black reactive armor. Their faces masked, their voices silent. Weapons always raised, never wavering. Inside the command center, 3 Dominion commanders sat chained to their own chairs. Bloodied, beaten, alive. Vale said nothing at first. He withdrew a data chip, slid it into the console. The wall screen flared. Intercepted footage played. Ganymede survivors, shackled, screaming, dragged into cells. A woman's voice cut through the static, pleading in perfect galactic standard. "Please, my son is sick. We only want to reach home." The recording showed one of the very commanders now sitting before us. He gave a casual nod, ordering her silence. The footage rolled on. Executions in the snow, laughter, guards smiling as shots rang out. The same woman again, weaker this time. "Please, someone." Then silence. Vale turned from the display to the commanders. His voice was soft. "We gave the galaxy a chance. We asked to be left alone. And when they burned us, we asked again. Nicely. Quietly." He stepped closer, crouching to eye level with the man from the footage. "You knew they weren't soldiers. You knew they were just trying to get home." The commander spat blood, muttering through broken lips. "Illegal refugees. Protocol. Vales." Pistol was out before the word finished. The shot cracked through metal, blood painting the floor. The other 2 commanders flinched but stayed silent. Vale reholstered, voice cold as steel. "Protocol. That's what they always say when they want to feel clean." He turned. His soldiers finished the executions, then set the bunker ablaze. An hour later, we were back aboard the ship. I should have been sick. I should have objected. My whole life I'd clung to the belief that justice and cruelty had to remain separate. But now, I wasn't sure anymore. These weren't random massacres. Every strike Earth carried out had reason. That was what unsettled me most. This wasn't genocide, it was retribution. Later that cycle, a ping rattled my tablet. A private message, encrypted, but not by Earth. It came from an old friend back in Dominion space, another analyst, Kale. "They're coming for the core worlds next. 6 fleets already gone. The Council is in chaos. Some whisper surrender, total, unconditional. But it may already be too late." Attached was a black box file pulled from a Dominion cruiser lost in the Lyros belt. The footage was worse than anything I had imagined. No weapons, no shouting, just silence. A small Terran vessel had docked on a Dominion battleship during what was meant to be a ceasefire inspection. Then the soldiers aboard released something into the air systems. Not plague, not toxin. Something else. Something that made you see. Within 30 seconds, every Dominion soldier was screaming, clawing, breaking. Some tore out their own eyes. Some turned their weapons on themselves. Hallucinations, pure terror. Earth had never fired a shot. The Dominion had built an empire on fear and control. Now, Earth wielded fear better than anyone. Afterward, I wandered Retribution 1's endless halls, haunted by the images. I passed a chamber sealed behind glass where scientists and engineers worked over a weapon that pulsed with unfamiliar energy. Behind it, etched into steel, was a phrase in old Terran script. "We are not the monsters. We are what monsters fear." I stared at those words until I couldn't breathe. What was I now? Observer, traitor, survivor? All I knew was this: the galaxy had provoked the wrong species one time too many. Now it was bleeding. The core worlds. Dominion's pride. Its shining jewel. Girded by asteroid belts, fortress rings, weapons forged from star husks. Billions lived there under the illusion of peace. Peace purchased with silence and blood. No war had scarred those planets in 3,000 years. Until Earth arrived, it began quietly. Dominion communications fizzled. Relay stations darkened, one after another. No explosions, no visible strikes, just silence. Hollow, expanding silence across the channels. At first, the Council dismissed it. Sabotage, perhaps. Insurgents, pirates. Anything but what it was. They hadn't yet understood how Earth sent messages. The first undeniable sign came on. Once I had been a proud analyst of Dominion psychological ops. Now I felt only a chill that never left. This wasn't war. It was precision extermination. Beside me, Colonel Vale stood silent, his eyes locked on the devastation below. "They thought Earth's strength was numbers," he said flatly. I glanced at him. "Then what is it?" He didn't answer immediately. Then, almost a whisper, "It's that we don't forget. And we don't forgive." The next name on the list was Vine 7, a diplomatic jewel, home to treaties, councils, interstellar courts, neutral by every measure, except one. After Ganymede, Dominion transports had passed through Vine space carrying prisoners. Earth had begged, pleas, intervention, sanctuary. The High Tribunal refused, citing neutrality. They denied asylum. Their silence killed thousands. So Earth answered in kind. Retribution 1 did not lead this strike. Another vessel did. Judgment Dawn. Sleek, swift, lightly armored. It wasn't there to fight. It was there to broadcast. From orbit, it loosed deep penetration sonar fields across Vine's surface. Buildings didn't explode. They sang themselves apart. Stone and steel vibrated into ruin, high-frequency resonance, tore civilians into seizures, ruptured blood vessels, split brains from the inside out. Entire cities dissolved in harmonic collapse, and every moment was streamed. This time, Earth did not look away, and they made sure no one else could either. The message burned across thousands of systems, punctuating every wave of destruction. You could have stopped it. You didn't. So you don't get to hide behind neutrality. The galaxy fractured overnight. The Dominion's millennia-old rule, fear and control, was unraveling. Earth carried something deadlier. Righteous rage. Empires that once marched under the Dominion banner folded inward, pulling fleets home. Fringe colonies ignited in revolt. Civil wars erupted. Trade pacts collapsed within hours. No one wanted to be next. And still, Earth said nothing. They weren't rallying allies. They weren't issuing demands. They were crossing names off a list, one by one. Back on Retribution 1, I began to notice the crew changing. They weren't weary, they weren't reluctant. but something inside them was rotting away. Reyes, lead comms officer. Quiet man, soft voice. I passed him one morning, asked how he was holding up. He looked at me with hollow eyes and said, "It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like burying ghosts." That afternoon, he put a gun in his mouth and painted the mess hall in silence. No one spoke during the cleanup. No one had to. That night, I dug into Dominion archives, files I once thought classified beyond reach. Surveillance feeds from Ganymede, whistleblower reports buried under layers of suppression. It wasn't just atrocities, it was perversion. Executions streamed. Lived to Dominion elites as entertainment. Children carved apart for off-book science divisions. Earth had begged for aid. Dominion had turned its cruelty into spectacle. One clip seared itself into me. A girl, 9 years old at most, clinging to her brother as Dominion soldiers dragged him away. She screamed until her voice broke. "Please, he's all I have left." The feed cut abruptly. I knew why. Colonel Vale never spoke of peace again. By the week's end, another core world fell. Sthara, so arrogant it had named itself the voice of order. Earth silenced it in 6 hours. Not with weapons, with memory. Every screen, every broadcast tower on Sthara was hijacked. Not propaganda, testimony, voices of Earth's survivors. Ganymede, Europa, convoys lost to cold vacuum, men weeping, women begging, children whispering about the stars as they froze in lifeboats. Zathara's own citizens turned on their leaders. Riots tore the cities apart. Government halls fell to fire. Earth never landed troops. They never had to. They only reminded the galaxy what silence had cost. On the bridge, Vale watched the planet unravel, his face unreadable. "This isn't justice anymore," I whispered. I spoke quietly. He turned his head. "No." "Then what is it?" His voice was steady. "Balance." That's when I understood Earth had no desire to become the Dominion. They didn't crave power. They wanted equilibrium after centuries of bleeding. And if balance meant burning every system that once turned away, so be it. One day later, the transmission came. The Dominion Council. First contact in weeks. Their words, "We surrender, unconditionally." "Please, stop." The bridge fell silent. All eyes turned to Colonel Vale. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then, "We heard you." He cut the line. Earth wasn't ready for apologies, not until every ghost was buried. The Dominion had surrendered fully, desperately. Still, Earth advanced. I was there, standing on Retribution 1's bridge, when the council message played. The galaxy's highest ruling body, reduced to trembling diplomats, broken bureaucrats, begging with a word they had never given to others. "Please, Vale." Watched without expression. For a moment, I thought I saw hesitation flicker in his eyes. But it died instantly. He turned, gave a single nod to comms. The message was erased, not archived, not logged for history, deleted. Because Earth no longer cared about words, only the dead. And the dead weren't finished yet. That cycle, we changed course, not to a fortress, not to a core world, not even to a target I'd seen listed in war room projections. Something worse, something personal, Theta Vault 9. It wasn't public. Even most Dominion officials didn't know it existed. But Earth had found it, hidden beneath a rogue moon wrapped in gravitational shields and false satellites. One of the Dominion's deepest black sites, where secrets were stored and where inconvenient lives were erased, and Earth now had confirmation. From the ruins of Sthara's command, they uncovered records, 12 children from Ganymede. Listed as missing, not dead, captured, transferred here, for long-term intelligence value. Translation, experiments. Vale didn't make a speech, he didn't need to. We dropped from hyperspace, 3 million clicks out. No maneuvers, no approach, just immediate deployment. From Retribution 1's hold came a weapon I had never seen. A black sphere, small and silent. It drifted toward the moon like a falling ember. When it touched the surface, it didn't explode. It whispered. A pulse rippled outward, silent, invisible. Systems collapsed on contact. Firewalls shredded. Defense platforms turned their guns inward. Artificial gravity inverted for 8 seconds, crushing everything unanchored into paste. 30 minutes later, we landed. They let me join the boarding team again. Maybe they thought I couldn't flinch anymore, or maybe they wanted me to keep watching. As punishment, as transformation. The corridors of Theta 9 reeked of smoke and rot. Shadows clung to the walls. The bodies of guards twisted in grotesque angles, faces frozen in terror. Some had clawed their own skin apart. Others had bitten off their tongues. Neural inversion field, one Terran officer muttered. Scrambles fear centers. Instincts eat themselves alive. No pity in his voice, just facts. We found the first child in a glass cell, small, frail, wrapped in synthetic blankets, eyes wide open, staring at nothing. On the wall, drawings in crayon, stars, planets. A tall woman wearing Terran insignia, a mother figure, someone who had promised to return. She never did. Vale stood in the doorway, fists clenched so tight his knuckles whitened. His jaw trembled. He said nothing. Room by room we searched. 9 of 12 confirmed dead. Records detailed autopsies, tests, some marked non-viable. The last 3, missing. Transferred to something called Project Ashglass. Location, Arkans. Wake, another ghost. Another secret I hadn't heard in all my Dominion years. An abandoned shell world, orbiting deep inside a neutron star's pull. Declared uninhabitable decades ago, Earth was already plotting the coordinates. Vale turned to his second, Captain Nia Roland. Stern, unblinking. Launch Black Spear Protocol. She nodded. Full force, all of it. I didn't understand. Not until later. Black Spear wasn't a mission. It was vengeance incarnate. The elite of Earth, engineered, cyber-linked, raised from birth for one purpose. Retaliation. Not survivors, not remnants. A new breed. That night, in my quarters, I sat, trembling. Blank walls staring back. Earth wasn't punishing anymore. They were hunting, not accepting surrender, erasing rot like a surgeon with a blade and a grudge. By the next cycle, Theta 9 was gone. Not captured, not repurposed, annihilated. The moon. Imploded. Its core destabilized, consuming the vault in molten collapse. Nothing survived. The message was unmistakable. Touch our children and we will find you. Harm them and we will end you. From orbit, I watched the moon split apart, burning from within. Plasma seared the darkness. And I thought of the girl from the recording. The one who clung to her brother and begged for help that never came. I didn't know if she lived, but I knew this. Someone in Earth's command still remembered her. I began to wonder what I was becoming. Once I took pride in logic, in detached analysis. I studied war, politics, psychology from a safe distance. But now, I couldn't look away from Earth's vengeance. Worse, I didn't want to. There was satisfaction in the justice they delivered, even when it was drenched in blood. And that terrified me. I was no longer an observer. I was a witness. And soon, I knew, I would be a participant, whether I chose to or not. I had thought Earth's wrath must have been spent by now. But Arkan's wake proved me wrong. The place was supposed to be a dead husk, gravity warped, gutted by stellar radiation, abandoned by anything resembling life. No colonies, no settlements, only a jagged corpse drifting near the pull of a collapsed neutron star. Yet the Dominion had buried something there, Project Ashglass, That's where the last 3 children from Ganymede had been sent. We didn't know what Ashglass truly was. The files we recovered from Theta Vault 9 had been fragmented, corrupted, maybe even sabotaged by fleeing Dominion officials. Even Earth's AI cores couldn't fully stitch them together. But certain words cut through like blades. Psychogenic, integration, trial, zero consent, biofusion, weapon potential. They weren't studying the kids anymore. They were forging them into weapons. We entered Arkan's system blind. The neutron star's radiation crippled long-range scans, forcing Earth's fleet to rely on manual sweeps, thermal hunting, signal echoes. Earth adapted without hesitation. They always did. It was what made them terrifying. I was in the war room when Retribution 1 finally pinned down the facility. It wasn't above ground. It was buried deep, miles beneath iron strata, cloaked in engineered gravity layers to stay hidden forever. Dominion had built it so it would never be found. Earth found it anyway. They didn't storm it immediately. Instead, they sent me. Colonel Vale called it a gesture of truth. "You used to be one of them," he said. "Maybe they'll talk to you." I should have refused. I should have laughed at the absurdity. But the part of me that was hardening, colder and sharper with each passing day, simply nodded. They handed me a black pressurized suit. No weapons, only a short-range comm and a pulse monitor. "You're not going in alone," Vale added. "We're tracking your signal. If it cuts, we level the planet." Comforting. An orbital cannon carved my entry tunnel, dropping me straight into the crust above the facility. The silence was oppressive. Not empty. Waiting. The lights flickered overhead. The air tasted of chemicals and charred circuitry. Each step echoed, my breathing loud inside the helmet. I moved forward cautiously, every nerve braced for a trap. Then I saw the first figure. Human, or once had been, the body hung in a transparent tank of fluid, flesh threaded with wires, eyes replaced by red glass orbs. Its chest was split open, something both organic and mechanical pulsing inside. The nameplate still clung to the collar, Dr. Celian Merrick, Dominion Genetics. He had built this nightmare. And he was dead. Not by Earth's hand. The machine in his chest had consumed him from within. I pressed deeper. The scale was larger than I'd imagined, labyrinths of labs, cells, observation decks. Then I heard it. A voice. Small. Young. "Who are you?" I froze. It came again, softer. "Are you another test?" "No," I answered aloud, forcing calm. "My name is Kale. I came with the humans. They're here to take you out." Silence. Then, "Too late." I followed the voice to a control chamber littered with shattered displays. One stasis pod remained intact. Inside stood a girl, 10 years old at most, pale hair unevenly cut, eyes glowing faintly blue. She wasn't shackled, no visible restraints, but her expression was glass, empty, fragile, as though blinking might let in memories too heavy to bear. She fixed her gaze on me. "I remember you." My blood iced. "You don't," I said softly. "We've never met. But I remember your kind. You watched. You all watched. When they took us, when they hurt us, when they asked questions and never cared for the answers." She pressed a palm to the chamber wall. It rippled like liquid. "Are you here to die?" "No," I told her. "I'm here to take you home." She tilted her head. "Where is that?" I had no answer. The temperature dropped behind me. Lights flickered. I was no longer alone. 2 figures stepped out of the shadows. A boy, tall, maybe 15, his bare chest carved with scars, circuitry glowing along his spine. And another girl, silent, her eyes black, hands bound in metal bands that writhed like living chains. They watched me in silence. All 3 carried the same expression. Calm fury, not hate, Not rage, just emptiness. "We remember everything," the older boy said. He stepped forward. The guards had stopped feeding us, only watching as our blood was drained into jars as they forced us to fight one another to see what our bones could endure. My voice faltered. "I didn't do this." "No," he answered, "but you let it happen." His hand lifted, and the walls themselves screamed, not with sound, but with something deeper, a resonance that tore through nerves and memories alike. I collapsed to my knees, clutching my helmet, every fiber of me burning. And then I understood. They weren't children anymore. They weren't human either. They were something else. Earth hadn't come here to rescue them. Earth had come to witness what the Dominion had forged. The girl, her name was Elia, I would later learn, stepped close and pressed her palm against my chest. "You're afraid," she said. I couldn't respond. She leaned in, eyes unblinking. "Good." Then she faced the wall and whispered, "We're ready." The stasis pod unraveled like smoke, and suddenly alarms shrieked across the entire complex. Vale's voice cracked into my comm, clipped and urgent. "Kale, report! You're surrounded by massive bioenergy spikes. Do you need extraction?" "No," I breathed. "They're not enemies." "Then what are they?" I rose to my feet slowly. "Victims," I answered, "and something more." Vale hesitated. "We're pulling you out regardless. They're too dangerous." "No," I said firmly. "They're coming with me." No reply came, but 20 minutes later, when I surfaced, the dropship waited. No weapons trained on me, no soldiers standing guard, only silence. The three followed without hesitation. When we lifted away, I glanced back at the scarred moon that had caged them, and in a voice too quiet for hatred, too measured for vengeance, Elia murmured, "They thought we were weapons. But we're memories, and now the galaxy will remember us." Back aboard Retribution 1, Vale was waiting. He studied them, silent, radiating something vast and terrible. "Are they stable?" he asked. I shook my head. "They're not meant to be. But they're not hostile. Not yet," he pressed. "Not threats," I corrected. "Witnesses. And if the Dominion thought Earth's fury was harsh before..." I glanced toward the children. "They have no idea what comes next." They didn't weep. They didn't sleep. Words were rare. Aya, the youngest, her eyes like frozen stars, spent her days staring out from the viewports, gaze distant, fixed on galaxies none of us could see. Her face never shifted. Not grief, not rage, detachment. As though she'd already watched everything burn and was only waiting for the ash to fall. Arik, the elder boy, almost never left the training decks, not because he needed discipline. He didn't. Earth's finest soldiers could not touch him. One had tried, early on, during a sparring session. Arik hadn't moved. The man's spine simply collapsed, clean and silent. The medic said it was as though gravity itself had folded inward for a single instant, centered on that man's core. Mira, the mute, was the strangest. She wandered the ship barefoot, trailed always by a pair of drones that matched no design known to Earth. When one engineer tried to examine the orb, it dissolved into liquid within his hand, and then reformed 10 seconds later behind his back. That was the one time she smiled. Just once. The rest of the time she drifted through the corridors like a phantom. At first, the crew pretended to carry on. Orders were still given, missions still charted. But no one came too close. You could feel the tension in the air. Not exactly fear of the children, but fear of the truth they embodied. Proof that Earth's fury had come too late. We hadn't saved them. We had only uncovered what remained. 3 cycles after Arkin's wake, Vale called a high-level summit. Commanders from every fleet holo-linked in, their faces hard, grim. The screens overflowed with tactical reports from the galactic front. The Dominion wasn't fighting anymore. It was imploding. Core worlds had gone dark. Military outposts destroyed themselves rather than surrender. One admiral surrendered live on transmission, then detonated his flagship mid-sentence, as though erasure was the only confession left. Earth hadn't even demanded it. The war wasn't war anymore. It was collapse, and Earth was deciding what would follow. I sat in the back of the war room, watching as Colonel Vale stood at the head of the table, the three children poised behind him. Like shadows given form, they did everything we feared, Vale began. The Dominion lied, tortured, murdered, and buried the truth beneath centuries of peace, and we gave them a chance to come clean. He gestured toward Aya, Mira, and Arik. This is what they chose instead. Silence answered him. Then, Admiral Russo leaned forward. What do you propose? Their war machine is in ruins, their leaders scattered. If we press harder, we risk driving the rest of the galaxy into alliance against us. Vale didn't even blink. Then let them unite. Another voice cut in, this one sharp, from a young commander of the Arctic Division. You're suggesting we fight the entire galaxy? No, Vale said evenly. I'm suggesting we remind them what silence costs. The words hung like a blade above the room. Before I could find the courage to interject, she spoke first. Elia. Her tone calm, measured, yet it silenced every officer in attendance. If you burn too long, she said, you become the fire. Her small hands were folded neatly before her. Her bearing was far too solemn for a child. I don't want vengeance anymore, she continued. We already had that. But if you become them, if you crush worlds on suspicion alone, then there will be more of us. She looked toward Mira, perched now on the edge of the table, legs swinging slowly, black eyes unblinking. More orphans, more ghosts, more monsters raised in locked rooms. No one spoke. Vale's jaw tightened, then he turned to me. Kale, he said flatly. You've seen more than most. Say something worth hearing. I rose. My mouth was dry, but I forced the words out. Earth has already won. Not only on the battlefield, you won the truth. The galaxy has seen it all. The betrayals, the pain, the recordings, the confessions. You've been righteous in your fury. I paused, letting it sink in. But now comes the test. Can Earth lead with the same fury and still remain just? Admiral, Russo gave a slow nod. Because the galaxy is watching. Power like this never stays unnoticed. The silent empires are terrified already. Vale did not answer at once. He paced to the table, scanning the data feeds of galactic powers. Commerce, hubs, comm relays. Then he touched a name, Talvaros, a neutral world, a vast trade nexus. It had never raised a hand directly for the Dominion, but every Dominion law had made it prosper. It had fed the war machine, profited from oppression. They feasted on blood, Vale said. But now they'll extend diplomacy because we are strong. Then take their diplomacy, I urged. But don't do it with a gun in their throat. Vale's eyes narrowed. They supplied the Dominion while our children screamed. And we must ensure no child screams again, Aya whispered. I hadn't expected Vale to yield, but he did. He ordered Retribution 1 to alter course for Talvaros, not to annihilate, but to speak. The children made no comment as the command echoed across the ship. That night, I found Arik in the observation deck, gazing out at a star long dead. The star system turned slowly in the void as he watched. I don't sleep anymore, Arik said. I thought you didn't need to. Not because of my body, he whispered. Because when I do, I remember. He turned to me. They made me fight my brother. I didn't want to, but they told me if I refused, he'd die slowly. His gaze dropped to his hands. I killed him in 9 seconds. Quick, clean. I said nothing. There was nothing to say. He looked back out at the dark. If Earth becomes what they were, I'll leave. I'll take Mira and Aya and vanish into the black, We were built to survive, but I won't serve another machine. You won't have to, I told him. I prayed the words weren't a lie. When we reached Talvaros, the Planetary Council sent envoys. For the first time, Earth replied not with fire but with speech. Vale stood before them with the children, not as weapons but as witnesses. I'm not here to threaten you, he said. I'm here to give you a choice. He placed a data pad on the polished stone table. You fueled the machine that killed our children, not in battle but in silence. You profited. He stepped forward. So here is what you'll give. 30% of your planetary output, dedicated to rebuilding the Ganymede line, medical support, refugee housing, cultural restoration, no armies, no credits, only care. The council hesitated. Vale leaned closer. If you refuse, we won't fire a shot. We'll release every record, every contract, every shipment, every signature tying you to Dominion crimes. His smile was thin, merciless. And then we'll walk away. Let your people decide what to do with you. That was Earth's new weapon, truth. The council yielded. Talvaros remained standing. No ashes fell, no cities burned. But the lesson rang louder than cannon fire. Earth would not conquer. Earth would judge. The war ended without spectacle. No last clash, no flag raised above ruins. It ended with silence, not peace, but the silence that comes when fear has sunk so deep no one dares to breathe. The Dominion was gone, not defeated, dismantled. Fleets scattered, archives exposed, leaders dead or vanished into the void like vermin, abandoning a collapsing temple. Worlds once proud of their loyalty to the Dominion now hung white banners and sent aid convoys to Earth's rebuilding colonies. The children of Ganymede became more than memory. They became warning. Elia, Auric, Mira, no longer merely survivors, but myth. Their names carried on every station and outpost. Some whispered they were weapons forged by Earth. Others believed them the next step of humanity. A few claimed they weren't human at all, but cursed relics of the Dominion's cruelty. But I knew better. They were broken children who chose not to become monsters, even though the universe had given them every reason to. I walked with Elia on the observation deck of Retribution 1 the day the official ceasefire arrived. Not from the Dominion, they were dust, but from the United Galactic Accord, a fragile coalition of old colonies, small empires, and neutral systems. They didn't beg for mercy. They offered respect. Earth was granted a permanent seat, uncontested, and oversight powers few had ever dared grant before. A dangerous trust, considering what Earth had shown itself capable of. But Earth accepted, quiet and deliberate. They would lead, but not with crowns, only scars. I don't know if this is justice, I told Elia as the stars drifted like snow beyond the glass. It isn't, she said. But it's better than silence. She pressed her hand to the viewport. Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if the galaxy had listened sooner? All the time, I said. She turned toward me, and for the first time, I saw not rage or distance in her eyes, but sorrow. The sorrow of someone who had lived too much. There's a world, she whispered. Past the rim. No name, just rivers and trees. I asked Vale if we could go. You want to leave? She nodded. Mira's tired of the screams in her head. Auric won't admit it, but he fears what he might become. I think we all do. 2 cycles later, Vale approved their departure. Earth did not resist. They had given enough. They deserved something back. A fleet escorted them to the edge of charted space. No ceremony, no speeches, just silence, just respect. When their ship vanished into the black, something inside me lifted, something I hadn't realized I still carried. Hope. But Earth's story wasn't finished, nor was mine. Rebuilding began slow, uneven. Scars too deep for treaties to heal. Pirates rose, exiled admirals dreamed of dominion restored, smugglers peddled relics of war. But Earth no longer answered with fire. They answered with witnesses. Stood among thousands when the first Truth Assembly opened. 50 worlds gathered, hundreds of delegates. And at its heart, projections of the 3 survivors of Ganymede, recorded before they vanished. Not to accuse. To remind. Earth opened every file, every atrocity, every forged decree, every lie that bought silence. And then they said, "We will not punish you, but we will not forget. If you stay silent again, it won't be Earth you answer to. It will be your own people." And it worked. The galaxy shifted. Small worlds began trials of their own. Citizens turned against their rulers. Justice spread, not by force of conquest, but by fear of silence itself. Vale retired soon after. No ceremony, no broadcast. He simply vanished from command. His file closed with 3 words, "Mission fulfilled." Some claimed he returned to Earth. Others swore he followed the children into exile. I don't think I'll ever know. As for me, I was offered a seat in Earth's new oversight coalition, part politics, part intelligence.